At Wings of Transformation Publishing, we are committed to helping our authors reach their goals and pursue their dreams of becoming published authors. We work closely with each author to ensure a successful publishing experience, and we are dedicated to helping them tell their stories in the most meaningful and impactful ways. We look forward to putting you on the path to writing your book.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Crew Podcast. I am the visionary Queen Angela, and welcome to Season 2. I want to thank you for tuning in and for all of your support throughout Season 1. We're back, them divas of the airways. So thank you for joining us tonight. Share this with someone in your circle.
And greeting. We're building a new legacy. Get ready. Let's just had to start the energy right and welcome Aquaba Hotep Peace. You're joining us on a new legacy. Check that out. A new legacy. We're building a new legacy. This is a broadcast that will feature a variety of reasonings, conversations, correction, conversations that allow us to really uphold culture, healing, arts, technology, and spirituality for life, inspiration, freedom, and edification. Notice I didn't say education, edification. For those persons that may not be as familiar, I am Queen Mother Dr. Chensira Hajila Adeke. Few other names that come with that. I currently serve in many capacities, and tonight I am really pleased and honored to be welcomed as part of the crew. The crew. And this is a whole new set of divas, sistren that really desire to bring truth to power, to really bring vibrational shifts, really engaging opportunities for us to share how to live well, how to heal, how to empower one another, how to show love, sustain and maintain integrity, loyalty, power, and sovereignty at the same time. And I'm really excited because this is the launch of our broadcast made possible through various networks, including Us Speaks. I have the support of the African Queen Mother Warriors, an international organization. It's the AQMW, just so persons get into that vibration. We speak of our sisters as queens. We speak of them not in the manner of a feudal vibration, but we speak of our sisters as queens to keep them elevated, to keep them involved in things that are virtuous and upright and positive and blessed and spiritual okay, I got excited. So I will just hold a whole space. I am also elated beyond measure that tonight, as we opened up with the piece Nubian People, and you'll hear that again, that's Brother Spunky with one of our illustrious queens, Reverend Ivy Shadiah Hilton. If you're not familiar with the word sound, you might want to just Google her name because she always brings that energy, that vibration, that healing in all of the things she does. So, just as a short description for those persons that are joining us for this podcast here on Speaks, Building a New Legacy. What does that mean? What does that vibrate? So, yes, it's interdisciplinary, and yes, it's transcultural, but the intention is for us to be able to use this media podcast environment so that we can share in conversations. What am I saying here? Life-centered conversations. For those that aren't accustomed to us using self-determination in our language skills, life-centered discussions, life-centered perspectives, life-centered actionable deliverables, things that we can really speak into areas that allow for us to share our perspectives, some that are very insular or just inside of our soul self, some that are connected to our families, some that are connected to our communities, some that are connected to the wider village, some that's connected to all of society and humanity as a whole, because our shared humanity allows us to maximize how we build, maintain, and strengthen new legacy. We're going to also have an opportunity this evening to have one of our illustrious guests. I'm really honored and privileged to have with me this evening, and I refer to him as son, a powerfully royal son, none other than our ambassador and Reverend, Brother Kamal. How are you feeling this evening?
I'm feeling fabulous. I'm super. Being in the same room with my not just queen mother, I have many queen mothers, but I only have one supreme queen mother. So to be a part of the launch of season 2 of this podcast with you, live and alive, in support of the crew, it's absolutely for me, quite a lovely way to spend my Thursday evening, and I'm just really looking forward to bringing the heat. In this case, bringing the heat through love and light and logic. I love the tone that you've set. I love the mood that you've set. And I'm 1000% ready. So, in a nutshell, I'm doing swell. I'm vibrating in the Ankh energy myself. So, go ahead, Queen Mother.
Give thanks. Well, that's the whole idea when we're bringing these types of conversations together so that we can have guests that also bring their skills, their talents, their expertise, and of course, their spirit. The whole idea is so that when we're speaking, that we're doing as much as we can to contribute to building legacy. What is the legacy that's of interest to you? What are the things that you see as permanent, ever changing in some contexts, but permanent in terms of how do you sustain and strengthen the pillars that keep your family, your community, your society, and of course, our shared humanity together. And part of that has a lot to do with purpose. So when we start to talk about these things, we're also speaking about how to bring exemplary forms of how we engage in just our relations with one another, showing respect and reverence to one another. And then, of course, looking at what's happening in the earth. What types of environmental issues affect you? What are some of the intergenerational things that you're seeing between elders, those that are not quite elders, those that are millennials, those that are Generation X? What are the things that you see in that regard? And then also, how do you bring this to the next level? How are you feeling really? What are the things that feed your mind daily? And how do you strengthen some of that? So when we speak of purpose, we're always speaking of being able to have a purpose, being able to express that purpose, being able to strengthen that purpose. So we're going to take a minute. Let's kind of listen. Just kind of listen. A little reggae. We're going to take it up a little bit. We'll try to do kind of real energy. Keep it live. Woo! Freedom. We need freedom. Oh yes, I want freedom. I want freedom. Have a purpose in all you do. Just make sure that your purpose is true. Have a purpose in this here life, so your life ain't full of strife. I live a purpose each and every day, so we can live in joy. I have a purpose in all you do. Just make sure your life is true. Every time we walk on the streets, we see all the children crying. Every time we see our day, it seems like people are lying. Everywhere that we see on this earth is supposed to be about the birth, but it's all death. And now we have a world of confusion. I have a purpose and all you do, just make sure that your life is true. Have a purpose in this here life, so your life ain't full of strife. Live a purpose each and every day, just make sure you live in joy. Have a purpose in all you do, so your life is forever true. We have to live the life of Ma'at so we can have reciprocity. We have to live the life like Jahuti, all intelligent is pure. If you have a purpose every day, you move along a way that's all divine. Have a purpose in all you do, so your life is true like mine. Freedom. Freedom. Just had to change up the energy like when we talk about purpose as we get ready to go into a conversation about how we really bring things into this uplifting vibration. Greetings, Sister Queen Shanette. I'm seeing these names pop up. I'm like, let's make it roll. This is going to be a very engaging conversation because the idea is, how do you heal? How do you shift things? I'm sure the voice sounded a little familiar. Short promise, short thing. Some of us like to sing. We like to sing doing poetic verse. We may not do all the wild world of girl stuff, but we take diva to another level. You know, we take diva empress style, queen style, a little bit of pizzazz. But we're very excited to be able to talk about what is the purpose? What are some of the things? We know that February 1st marks the opening of African Black History Month. We know that in 2024, the whole theme that's identified in the nation is surrounding African Americans and the arts. So it gives us a very wide breadth of things that we can speak of when we speak of the arts, the creative arts, the visual arts, the performing arts, whether it's dance, theater, music, painting, sculpting, a variety of areas in the arts, and of course the digi arts, you know, in terms of the digital visual arts, the graphic arts, and a host of other things, the culinary arts. We get a chance to speak up in a variety of different places. So this gives us that opportunity to show the connection between what's happening, for example, in our Caribbean Americas, as well as in the 48 contiguous US. Of course, we don't want to leave out our brothers and sisters in Canada. And in speaking of the Caribbean Americas, we're speaking of that whole belt from the southern states and the 48 contiguous US, because that's all part coming into that Caribbean space, all the way throughout the Caribbean Isles, Central America, South America. And that's just what we're engaging and welcoming on this side of the Atlantic, and then taking it to the other side and welcoming then another layer of that African Black history experience, which is history in the making. Because in real life, we know that African Black history is 365 days. However, we want to give our respect to the Honorable Dr. Carter G. Woodson for having that foresight, really bringing truth to power, bringing it up in that regard. So we want to at least highlight that. So with that being said, I'm always excited, Your Royal Excellency, Ambassador Reverend Kwame Kana. In addition to the work that you do around economics and the education therein and sustainable development, and just bringing all of these things so that we don't look at culture or the arts or even education as a separate sphere. You're able to always bring it back into a space of currency and the
Absolutely.
currency and keeping it current. I like that with you. You keep it current while you still speak of currency. So I'd love for you to share with our viewing and listening audience a little bit about how does that navigate for you as we speak about building a new legacy.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I was bubbling to the reggae a while ago. When I think that I have the fullness of the Queen Mother, you drop something on me, and I'm like, okay, all right, okay, layers, layers. It's all about the layers. All right, so um, let me tell a story. I think that puts things into a wonderful context. And by the way, good night to our viewers by way of YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of the plethora of platforms that you're joining us in live. We want to say, as it were, assalamu alaikum, shalom aleichem. We want to say namaste. We absolutely want to say hotep, baete, baete, dayo dayo. Welcome, Akwaba, Bevakasha, coming, Rakan coming. I want to tell a story. I'm a griot. I was always a griot. But when I was a child, there was a question that was often put to me because I had a number of skill sets. Being born to a fourth degree black belt martial artist, karateka, who transferred into jiu-jitsu, who then created his own, as it were, fighting style ninjutsu, as part of Kamakus International, which was Camel's African Martial Arts and Cultural Arts School. So since I was a little youth, I was born and raised under the shadow of this. They are fathers, and then there are superheroes. So here I was born to this superhero. And then my mom, though diminutive in status, in terms of, well, stature, she was not diminutive in status. I'll say that again. My mom, biological, while diminutive in stature, was not diminutive at all in terms of status. And so at the side of every great man, you will always find an equally great woman. And so I had the fortune, I had the pleasure, I had the ancestrally ordained privilege of being born to what we call a Zaka man, a real man, a roots man, a second degree and second generation Gaviite, born to a first degree and first generation Gaviite and my grandfather. So by the time I was born, literally born into a household as a third generation Gaviite within a homeschool setting, very Afrocentric, very Pan-African. I couldn't say no to learning martial arts. It was either learn martial arts or die trying. favorably for me, I live to tell the story. You know, so thankfully, you know, it worked out well. But it was not an option growing up in the Kamau household. That was just not an option. But again, within that household, we had drumming. In that household, we had reggae. In that household, we had conscious, uplifting, nation building, kaiso, calypso. In that household, we had reggae beats, Fela Kuti and all the greats. Long before Afro beats was a thing, we had Afro beats in the household. So growing up in that environment, it was the perfect storm. It was a kind of a potpourri. It was a kind of a melu, a kind of a beautiful admixture of so many elements of African culture, African cuisine, all ital. Ital is vital. Grew up in a Rastafari household, dreadlock carrying household. And so that created a beautiful environment, a fertile environment, a chemetic environment. Chem, the black lands of the black people, partly because of the fertility of the Nile overflowing its banks, but more so because of the black rich Menelin B1 energy of the people that also inhabited the lands as well. So growing up for me, Dr. Ben Jokanon and Dr. Henry Clark and all of these heroes, and even some Shiros as well, you know, Amanarenas and Queen Sheba, and all of these Shiros, they were part and parcel of my what we'd call Ubuntu education. And so again, the question was asked, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? When I was a child, and I couldn't answer, Queen Mother. I couldn't. For the likes of me, I couldn't answer. Not because I didn't have talents and gifts and many options. It's just that I couldn't choose one. Because the ancestors were vibrating something to me, because the Most High was giving me some gentle nudges and inspirations and aspirations along the way, that I was not to be too tethered to anyone's science or anyone's spirituality. And so, favorably, because of such a rich and diverse menu, I was able to master a number of sciences, indigenous, traditional, conventional, and otherwise, so that I may be able in this incarnation to show up as an African reparations minister and diplomat, utilizing the ancient traditional Jahuti Ma'at traditions together with Ubuntu, Umuntu, Ungumuntu, Ungubantu, together with that of all of the other ancient traditions, together in one amazing, comprehensive menu that allows for us to look at reparations not just as, and I land here, as an external thing that we need to take to France and Spain and Portugal and the Netherlands and Germany, and let's not forget Britain and all of the other genocidal, marauding, colonial powers, and now neo-colonial powers that are still puppeteering and puppet mastering behind the scenes. I got the assignment from the ancestors to turn that reparatory struggle for justice and development inward, that we may be able to deal with the king man in the mirror, to deal with the queen sister in the mirror, and deal with the family, the African family, and all of the struggles and trials and the good and the bad and the ugly, and ask ourselves those fundamental questions in terms of who are we? Where are we going? What are we required to do? And how are we going to get there using ancient, sacred, sovereign, and sustainable models? And so that is a big nut, but it's a nutshell in terms of how I came to be and how I landed here.
Ashe. Oh, so for those persons that aren't as familiar, you can say, give it, when persons say, can I get an amen? This is that time for us to bring in that energy, that kind of spirit, that kind of vibration, because what we're speaking of is how do you bring truth to power? How do you sustain? When persons hear the term Ma'at, just so that for the listening viewers that may not be as familiar, Ma'at, let's practice this together. Truth. justice, order, reciprocity, balance, divine righteousness, harmony. 4 letters: truth, justice, order, reciprocity, balance, divine righteousness, harmony. And that's what we're speaking of when we speak of that ancestral principle of Ma'at, because it's something that is done. It is something that is lived. It is something that is perfected, not just practiced, but you do each day. You uncover each day. And you will have days where you go into the opposite of Ma'at, and that's called Isfet, chaos, disorder, lack of balance. So you disharmony, lack of truth, the opposite, yeah? And just so the persons are on the same page and what we're bringing to the table. So with that being said, and I like bringing things in and out because you have given a very wonderful, engaging conversation that allows for me to then go into this next piece that I would like to share, because I like to use the arts, I like to use music, because sometimes the message comes across with more clarity, with more vision, with more directness. So I'd like for us to listen to this piece, Africa, We Love You, by the phenomenal Bayesian poet laureate, Adrian Green.
Cause now we understand how they pushed and shoved you into the dimly lit corners of their history book. But we know the truth cause we've searched and looked to lift our minds off of Europe's hook. Some still don't understand how much strength and willpower it took to get from under their spells and propaganda. And now them a wonder how we so proud and we thy sheikies and we poopa. We let them know we were orphaned, but we found our mother. We've been reunited with our lost sisters and brothers. Africa stretches forth her hands to her prodigal sons and daughters, scattered across the water. In this great disaster with him calling Ma'afa, that was authored by those dirty, rotten, stinking, I won't say the word, but they tried to kill every last semblance of African spirit and skill. But destiny must unfold, prophecy must fulfill. Emancipation is a mountain, it's a real steep hill, and to get to the top of we is such a thrill. That's why from Cape Town to Cairo, Barbados to Brazil, no matter where we were taken, we are Africans still, and we will heal those emotional scars, and we will reclaim everything that's ours, and we will retake our place amongst the stars, and we will redeem our ancestors. Africa, we love you. Better days must come, we see our sun shining through. The storm clouds are moving from above you, and glorious things again will be spoken of you. Like cradle of humanity, birthplace of civilization, bringer of some sanity to these crazy modern nations. Sankofa is the only way out of this present situation. Looking backward to go forward to our future destination. Our relation to our history must be more than information. Emancipation is a feeling, it's an overwhelming emotion, inspiring devotion, and a commitment to undo the brainwashing and programming that they put us through. Africa is ancient, but we must experience it new. Africans be persistent, and to thy own culture be true. Let our common experience keep us together like glue. With that ancient African science, with them call Ubuntu. Ubuntu. Excuse me if I get a little high, but I'm a part of a race that they try to wipe out of all historical sight. And now my stories come to light, and all those wrongs I want to right, with songs of redemption and words to fight the oppression that got we gripped so tight. But this song, it ain't nothing fresh nor new. The prophet is already said to you, Africans unite, yeah, as we're moving right out of Babylon, and we're moving to our Father.
Again, you're listening to Us Speaks, Building a New Legacy, and we like to use word, sound, power, and strength from the artists that we know live in this particular frame. So when you hear me speak of chats for life, all I'm saying is culture, healing, arts, technology, and spirituality for life, inspiration, freedom, and edification. So we say chats for life to keep it tight, to keep it short, to keep it in the memory. We use mnemonics so that we can actually begin to strengthen those moments when we may feel a little bit off our throne. When you're a diva, an African empress, queen, mother diva at that, you have to sometimes be settled and get back on your center. And so many of the things that our illustrious guest, His Royal Excellency Ambassador Reverend Kwame Kamau, was sharing some of that in terms of his own journey. So each time we come together, the intention is so that we go on another layer, we uncover another part of that lotus petal, another part of that greatness, another part of that soul searching, another part of that body self, another part of that consciousness, another part of how do we heal in the midst of all of this chaos. And for some of us, when we speak of healing, yes, we're talking about heritage, yes, we're talking about education, yes, we're talking about arts, we're also talking about legacy. And in the context of what we bring together, we do our best to undo many of the damages done. So you'll hear people talking about reparatory justice. You'll hear people talk about reparations, and we're not talking about the begging version, and we're not talking about just the money. Money's good, money's important, but it's currency. So we're speaking of the resourcefulness, the restoration of our humanity, the restoration of how we engage with one another, the restoration of respect amongst one another, the restoration of our current vibrations of peace, love, joy, tranquility, those types of energies. When persons say Amin or Amen or Amen Hara, we're invoking that vibrational energy that keeps us fully connected with infinite source by all the names we choose to use. Elohim, God, Jehovah, Yahweh, Udumade, Intera. And we can go on with the list. The intention is so that we stay in that realm of harmony, in that realm of peace. And at the same time, be able to handle what's going on in our environment on this space that we call Earth, this particular planet that we are currently charged to be responsible with and for, right? So with that being said, I'd love for you to speak on some other elements of how you see African Black History Month. What are some things you see that we can begin, of course, our what we call our public version of things around building legacy, because it's really, there's so many things that have been taking place inside of the Caribbean community. For those that aren't familiar with CARICOM, the Caribbean community, more than 15 member states within the Caribbean, and their heads of states have really engaged in a variety of uplifting economic development, social development, building blocks. Think of it as the United Nations of the Caribbean, yeah? And then you have other layers of organizations in the region. You've got entities inclusive of the Emancipation Support Committee of Trinidad and Tobago. Where you'd like to be around August 1st every year is for their Pan-African Festival. Talk about building a new legacy. The richness of culture, the richness of edification, the richness of economic development. Have you ever been to a festival that actually in the middle of the festival has a conference on economic trade and commerce? That's the kind of fete and juve I like. right? Where we get to talk about those types. I figured that'd tickle you. You'll have it tickle. I was
Of
just like, okay,
course.
wait a second. I was like, we were just in a parade. I was like, we're in a parade 1 minute. The next thing I know, we're having like a serious throwdown. All kind of economists in the room, accountants in the room, persons that understand sustainable development and all types of things to make sure that persons know that when we speak of culture and heritage and the arts and our environment, we're talking about building blocks of society, which means we have to deal with currency, which means we have to deal with the economy. No one is supposed to go into this consciousness. There's no poverty mindset here. It's a mindset of prosperity, a mindset of sustainability, a mindset of academic excellence. Oh, okay. So I'm just giving some ideas, and then we also link this to the Universal Negro Improvement Association, African Communities League, particularly the Rehabilitating Committee 2020. So I'm very clear, very specific for those, because there's different elements, entities of the government established by the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. For those persons that might overlook some of these names, just we can do some Google. We'll drop some links in some of the areas so that persons can always come and gain, always come and gather. If you have questions, post them. If you have things that you have to share commentary on, so we can share that in some of our conversation. That helps us to do what? Building a new legacy. Notice how that's worded, not just any legacy, but a new legacy, so that it brings those things that are positive ancestrally, those things that are positive in terms of our African experience, those things that are positive in terms of our body, mind, soul, spirit, consciousness. Sounds like the elements: air, fire, earth, water. Ooh,
Absolutely.
spirit. Just a few. So please share with us, Ambassador.
Sure, sure. Well, firstly, in Trinidad and Tobago, we get to celebrate African History Month twice. We get to celebrate in February with the rest of the world, because as the US goes, so too the rest of the world, by way of the media and by way of, the power of their media machine currently is second to none. And so when you have our beautiful African American brothers and sisters celebrating African History Month, we celebrate right along with them. So we fully enjoy, full joy, Rastafari would say, the month of February and what that brings in terms of a focus on our history, our current affairs, and even Afrofuturism with a conscious, righteous, ma'atical, Jahuti bent. And so we get to enjoy that. But later on in the year, in the month of November, that is when we in Trinidad and Tobago celebrate our African History Month. And so I tell my children all the time, and of course, as you know, I'm a second generation homeschooler. So greetings to Yeshua and greetings to Enya and Didi, our beautiful children who are really having a ball of a time learning all of this Afrocentric scholarship. My daughter blew de Maya away because we practice African history 365 days a year and 66 on the leap year. So she was throwing out Swahili at him that he couldn't answer. He didn't have an answer for it, and on top of that, she did her own version of WizKids, Ujalekba, as well, made it her own and all of that. Right now, it's 400,000 views and climbing on Facebook. So she's a little ambassador in her own right, bringing again to the table that which I got from my ancestors. I am able to pass on to both herself and her brother, and they are really enjoying that. And the community is seeing the difference that an Afrocentric approach makes in terms of the culture, in terms of the cuisine, in terms of the language, in terms of understanding your heroes and sheroes, in terms of understanding the continent and the various states within same and the capitals of those states. Those children can break it down for you. I'm so very proud of them. And so I know that they represent, you talk about legacy, you talk about future. They represent our future. And if it's one thing that my wife, Nefertari Kandake Kamal, aka Lisi, shout out to the Empress, and I really, really put a lot of very worthy shout out. One of the things that we really put a lot of time and talent and treasure into is that legacy piece, because we understand that we are only as strong as our succession planning, building, and development. Because if we do everything in this generation, but there's no continuity, the Jamaicans would show you every time they win a relay race is because they had a good baton pass. And so you can be fast like I don't know what. If you drop the baton between runners, it's over. A slower athlete, a slower team would be able to come and undo you. And so with respect to that, Ubuntu education is our specialty. It's our focus. And by way of a sister that I want to shout out on this evening, Queen Sister Karine Joseph, she uses the nomenclature edification, education through engagement. And so a lot of what we do is practical and pragmatic and is designed in such a way that we can learn from the ancestors. The good we replicate, but we also learn from their mistakes. One of the things that we've come to find out in our Sankofa journeys, you go back, you get it. And of course, Rastafari would correct me because and I know go back at all. And I forward ever, backward never. So we go forward to our history and we get it that we may come forward into our present and then proceed forward into our future. And when we do that, we realize that there were many things that we did that were really on point, that were really aligned. But one of the things that I teach us, myself included, is that yes, Asa, who represented the perfect black, who represented, as it were, order, who represented, as it were, the embodiment of masculine, ma'atic energy in flesh. He is the one path, but there is another path, and it is the path of his brother, Set, the Isfet energy. And so both of them are African. And so our African ancestors, we take the credit for bringing arts and science to the world, spirituality to the world. But we also have to recognize that when we lost our balance, our harmony, our order, our divine righteousness, our reciprocity, our truth, and our justice, yes, we did devolve. Yes, we did descend. Yes, we did embrace chaos energies and we made some mistakes. And so now, with the benefit of hindsight, we can learn from both of the ancestors. Those that did well, we replicate and we build. But those that did not, we learn what not to do. And that is the secret to what I am advising our contemporaries to engage, to definitely Sankofa and get that historical piece. Add the piece that the ancestors sent you to correct and to improve, and know that that is not still going to be enough. I want to invoke here now Heteru Heru, which is to say that you have to have the throne set. You have to have the environment and enabling, fostering environment set in order for the Heru, the root word of our heroes, to be born and to be raised and to be nurtured so that they can come into the fullness of whose they are and who they are. So for us, it's the ancient history in terms of Kemet, in terms of Sumer. They call themselves the Sagiga, the black-headed ones. We study Elam Akkad, who call themselves the Salamat Kakadi. Again, the black-headed ones. That's in so-called Mesopotamia, so-called Levant. That's African territory too. For our ancestors, there were no boundaries there. We bring that into the Moorish presence, of course, with regards to Europe and the fact that from 710 AD to 1492, we had centuries of rulership and governance, and all the arts and sciences and cathedrals and universities that Europe boasts of. That's Black legacy. That is Black science. That is Black spirituality, often perverted, often distorted, often devolved, but it's Black, it's African nonetheless. And we bring it into the Americas as well, because I have some Taino and some Kalinango that flow through I and I. So I'm very, very
Ignorant.
proud.
Kiss yeah.
Yes,
That's right.
I. Yes, I. Yes,
I'm just
I.
saying, you bring up a lot of that. Bring up a
My,
lot.
my ancestors come from Kairaku, in terms of that. So shout outs to the Kairaku brethren and sistren who are still there, representing our indigenous American Aboriginal bloodlines, and I teach the children the African origins of, yes, the Amerindians. That bloodline is an African first bloodline, and then our cousins who were the Kushites who went into what we would call China now, the Indus Valley now, which was called East Ethiopia, so-called India now. That was East Ethiopia. All of that was part of the Cushitic Empire. So when they came to meet their cousins here from West Africa in the Americas, Turtle Island in the North, Central America, and of course South America, we teach our children that it was a family reunion. And for as long as it was a family reunion operating in the Ma'atic energy, it was fine. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. But then came some of our family through the European vine of the family tree, and they came with a different energy, an energy of conquest, an energy of competition, an energy of wanting to take over and take charge. But we teach them that they did that because of a lower vibration and a lower energy and a lower frequency, which we are to learn from, but never, ever, ever emulate. And so I do honestly believe that our legacy will be in good hands if we remain true to all that we are doing now by way of keeping it real and speaking that truth to power wheresoever it is required. And tonight is a wonderful time and opportunity to do it. I'd land there for now.
Well, we're grateful. It's when you get right in the midst of the energy and it elevates and it's passionate and it's emotive and it's a optical energy. Again, truth, just sort of reciprocity, balance, divine righteousness, and harmony. You'll get it after a while. It just comes off the tongue quick, quick, quick. This has been a joy and a privilege. We're going to really move this into another space because this is a regular podcast here on Thursdays, the first and the third Thursday of every month. And I really have to give thanks and praise to all of the queens, particularly Sister Queen Angela, for giving us this opportunity to be part of this launch with the season 2 kickoff. I'm like, whoop, whoop. In our tradition, we would say Dua and Tur. We give thanks and praise. We're saying Hotep, peace, tranquility. Of course, Ma'at, balance. The Ubuntu energy seems to be very high and strong. I want to thank those viewers, those listeners that have joined with us. We're going to do something a little special because I was originally supposed to start in March and do the first and the third Thursday. However, for the month of February, I'm going to have the honor and privilege of doing tonight's launch, and then next Thursday at the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Atlantic, to, again, have these versations, share in some of the uplifting vibrations around building a new legacy. I want to thank those that have been able to join us. I want to thank you, His Royal Excellency Ambassador Reverend Kwame Kamal, a son that is like many others that are powerful, engaging, and always respectful. I'm very grateful. The truths that you bring to the table, because we know we could have done this for yet another hour and just keep teaching and keep teaching. So I give thanks. I give thanks. And I give thanks. And as is customary, just how we started, we would like to make sure that we bring that same vibration into our energies so that persons are really comfortable knowing that we're talking about that new energy, that new being, that new vibration, that uplifting energy. And remember, always remember, culture heals humanity, land is our foundation, and spiritual harmony unifies us. so you are part of building a new legacy. This has been your host, Queen Mother, Dr. Chinzira. We appreciate love, and welcome your reflections, your support, and much more. And remember, we're right here with the crew. This is the crew podcast. So you got to, when you speak of queen of collaboration and things like that, we want to send energy of love and light eternally. So we'll just keep it moving. Enjoy the sounds. And remember, stay with us and stay strong all the time. Again, we say, Hotep and peace.